Hey everybody, I know it's about a minute before 7, and don't worry if you happen to find this and you hear me in the middle of speaking, because there's supposed to be an archived copy of this available, and I wanted to thank everyone who's joining in. I know there's been a lot of interest in this particular topic. I know there are a lot of things going on in our world right now, and people are trying to make sense of so much of what is going on. And as we know, education is a big part of it. What I'm going to try to do this evening is to lay out a story for you, or just a little bit of a story for you, because I know there's all kinds of things that we can learn from each other. And that's one of the things about fighting federal education and even global education, is that we all are in this together. And there's a reason why we want to fight these sorts of things. So anyway, I just wanted to welcome you so much for being here. My name is Lynn Taylor, in case you don't know it. Yes, my alter ego, if you will, is Common Core Diva. That is the name that I came up with, and that was due to so much of my research that I was doing. I felt like, oh my goodness, there's just so much of it. So what got me started was back in 2009. I was in the private education sector, if you will, and I had read some articles, and one of those I'm going to share just a little bit with you tonight. And it's kind of what opened my eyes to everything that was going on, not just in American education, but with the global overreaches as well. So again, my name is Lynn, and you can find me on Twitter at Common Core Diva. You can also find me, of course, here on Facebook, and you should know it's Common Core Diva is my Facebook page. I also have another one. It's called U.S. Parent Call to Action. I also can be found on the Patriot Institute Facebook page and website. I do occasional articles for them as well. And I just want to welcome everyone. Welcome to my home. I happen to be by myself right now, so pardon any amateurness of this particular video, but it's more about the information than it is who's speaking. So anyway, let me go ahead and get started then. Let me tell you just a little bit, and I am going to be looking at notes, and I'm going to do my best to get any of the links that I'm talking about to you in the comments as we're going. So just bear with me, if you will, okay? What this presentation is, I want you to know that it is evidence and research backed. This is not my opinion. I am not the one who's making this stuff up. I'm just the one who's been able to find some of this. And sometimes I find it on my own, and sometimes I have wonderful people who come in and help me find things as well. This is going to be a truthful presentation regardless of your political affiliation. Because what I've found in my research is it does not matter what side of the political spectrum your candidates are. They're probably in on this, or if they're not, they're being played. This is also a presentation that I'm doing as a service to our nation, to our students, and to our teachers. Now, what this presentation is not, it is not something to promote myself or seeking any money. It is also not financially backed by anyone in the Common Core machine, as I call it. And one of the reasons why I wanted to do this was, I don't know how many of you are watching, but follow me. A couple of days ago, I put out a very, very short video. It was like a 3 or 4 minute video. Anyway, I was really just very, very upset over the leadership of our nation deciding to, yes, we're going to continue to back the Agenda 2030, and we're going to do it financially as well. And that is not a good sign, not only for America, but for education. And of course, we're going to get into that as why. So one of the things that just broke my heart was that we as a nation are being played, and whether our leaders know it or whether they don't, whether our people in education realize that they're being played or not, I don't know. I cannot speak to that. All I know is what research and evidence has shown me. Now, if you saw the prep work for this particular presentation, you'll notice that I have got everything broken down as far as in subjects for you. So let's see here on my blog, and that's Common Core diva.wordpress.com, and that's where you can find me. And on my blog, I've been doing this since 2014. My research I've been doing since 2009. But as I've stated on the prep work, and if you didn't get that, then this will be some information for you as well. On my blog, you can find 2 pages or 18 articles on the Sustainable Development Goals and how they factor into American education. As far as tags on my blog, you can also look for the United Nations. And I encourage you throughout this particular presentation, if you want to take notes, that would be really, really good. Again, there should be an archive, but any of this that you want to go and look up on my blog, you absolutely can. United Nations, I have 5 pages of articles, or 45 of those. For global overreach into education, there are 23 pages worth of articles, and that's a total of 229 articles. For UNESCO, that is going to be your education arm of the UN. I have 5 pages or 47 articles. For STEM and how they fit into the Sustainable Development Goals, because after all, they are part of the Sustainable Developmental Goals. That is a tongue twister, so pardon me. I have 3 pages, 21 articles. How STEM and Common Core are married, 39 pages or 381 articles. How Common Core and the C3, that is going to be your Common Core makeover of your civics, your history. I have 1 page or 9 articles on those. And then on the next generation science standards, I have 2 pages or 17 articles. Now that's in total 908 articles. Now, let me clarify. I've not written 908 articles. A lot of these particular ones you're going to find over and over repeated. Like, for instance, if you're going to find an article under UN, you might see it under the Sustainable Development Goals. But I'm giving you just kind of a rundown of how much information is going to be there. It would equal that much. So anyway, like I said, it's just we've been lied to, and I'm sick of it, and I know you are too. And like I said, it doesn't matter which political party you are affiliated with. This is something that is going on. And if you're just joining, thank you so much. Okay, one thing I want to let you know is for global education, how it impacts us here in America. If you've heard of the Every Student Succeeds Act, if you've heard of the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act, and finally, if you've heard of the Higher Education Act, these are exactly the laws. And these are not all the laws, but these are the main 3, the Holy Trinity, as I call them, of ways that the global education has filtered into America. And we'll get in there just a little bit. And good evening to everyone who's joined. Hello, Danny and Darlene and everybody else. Okay, what set my little self on fire all those years ago? 2 articles, actually. One was a push for national standards, and as we know, how that's played out in America. But the other one, and maybe you've heard me mention this on some of my interviews, it was an article about the global push in education. It was by Tom DeWeese. And if you don't know Tom, he is the president of the American, hang on, where is he? Yes, he is the president of the American Policy Center, okay? And hello, Linda, how are you? Okay, so I'm going to show you the article. Whoops, hang on, got to get where my camera is. This was the article that he wrote. It's what we need to know about a globally correct education, what it is, what it teaches, and why it targets our children. And in 2017, it absolutely is targeting our children. Now, this article was written back in 2009. It is hard to find, so I will see if maybe we can find a link. I know Tom on Facebook, and we can probably get a link from him. But I'm not going to read you the whole article, but I wanted to read to you just a little bit, okay? There's an acceptable idea that government is the answer. There are forces in this nation who want total power to dictate their agenda and will stop at nothing to achieve it. The goal has been outlined in detail many times over, and it's found in the UN's report on global governance. It's in Agenda 21. It's in various programs of UNESCO, like the International Baccalaureate Program, which if you now know in ESSA, the IB schools or International Baccalaureate schools are just as mandated as the rest of the schools as well. You're going to find it in the Biodiversity Treaty and other things like that. You'll find it in cap and trade, the import-export as well. That's a newer act. And the reason is to destroy our control and ability to think. And if you're familiar with the Common Core, or as the ESSA has put it, it's going to be the challenging state academic standards. And let me point out that while ESSA does not say you have to keep Common Core, they're not going to stop. They're certainly not going to encourage you to use something that's non-Common Core aligned. All right, so that particular article was one that really just lit me on fire, because it was like, well, wait a minute, if the whole goal is to destroy our ability to think, hi Sandy, then we really, really need to be finding out what's going on. And so it was from there that I started researching. Here's another book. If you've not seen this one, this is available on lighthousetrails.com. It's a very small booklet. It's like $1.95. I ordered enough copies one time. I passed them out at the General Assembly in North Carolina where I live. But this gives us a blow-by-blow 100-year history of the progressive push to globalize our education. So it's not just Common Core, and I know a lot of people don't want to hear that phrase anymore because they, well, ESSA killed it. No, it didn't kill it, it extended it. And it's through this global education is how. So this is written by a lady, and her name is, wait a minute, let me find the camera, Barrett Kajos. I probably am killing that. It is obviously not an American name. She's done a fabulous job of giving you that 100-year timeline, but I wanted to give you just a little bit of her book as well. The goal of education has changed. Our public schools no longer teach the kind of literacy, history, math, and morality we once considered essential to responsible citizenship. This new agenda infiltrates our schools. It's designed to train a new generation of postmodern progressive students to believe whatever may serve a predetermined common good. And as we know, the UN is all about commonality and the greater good and the collective person, so on and so forth. I'm going to pause just a minute. I got a glass of water. Be sure to make yourselves at home while you're in my home, whether you're actually here or you're online, because I want you to feel comfortable. This is a tough conversation. Do remember, this is not conjecture on my part. This is not opinion. This is actual stuff that I've been able to find through many years of research. And I know on one of the last Facebook feeds I did, I was sharing with you guys about the Sustainable Development Goals. And I think I even made an offhand remark over the fact of, you know, I know they have colors and I'm sure the colors mean something. Well, I've actually been able to find out, yes, the colors actually do mean something. So, like again, if you're taking notes, you're going to want to write this down. Now, 17 different developmental goals. I'm going to read them to you, and I'm going to show you, first of all, these are the colors. There are 17 here, and these are the colors, all right? And I'm going to show you what the meanings mean, and these are huge if you're fighting to keep education local, okay? All right, our first sustainable goal is poverty. It's a red, okay? Our second one is hunger, and it's a yellow. Our third one, health, is green, okay? Fourth one, education. Now that's not really red, but on the website it's going to be red, okay? Now, I'm going to keep going. Gender, all things gender, orange, okay? Whoops, lost my paper. Okay, anything to do with water, of course, is going to be blue. All right, anything to do with energy, yellow, okay? We're going to go with the dark pink wherever it is, and that is right here. And the pink is going to be for decent work and economic growth. Number 9 is going to be our light orange, so we're going to pull the orange back out again, and that's going to be for industry, innovation, and infrastructure. All right, inequality, dark pink. All right, sustainable cities, gold. All right, consume and produce is also going to be kind of a yellowish gold color. All right, climate is going to be green. Ocean, of course, is going to be blue. Land is going to be green. Peace and justice is going to be a blue. And lastly, all your partners to make all this happen going to be a blue. So, basic colors, what do they mean? All right, according to a December 2015 article that I found, and this is by a group that is a non-government organization that is housed within the United Nations, and it's largely run by a big portion of the Catholic women. And this is called the UNANIMA. I do not know how to pronounce it. The first 2 letters, of course, stand for United Nations. The last is Latin, and it means a life principle. So now we have a group who's a non-government organization, and according to their report, anything that everyone at that 2015 Sustainable Development Goals agreed on was automatically a green colored goal. So when you see the green in the Sustainable Development Goals, it means all the member states, all the member nations were in total agreement, okay? So that's got all your greens. Okay, the areas that were in need of work, according to this particular document, any of those were going to be marked yellow, meaning we have more work to do. We don't all agree, and we can't have common good or common people if we can't all agree. So those goals were marked yellow as knowing that they needed work, okay? Now, according to a second document, because I know that was not all the colors, and I was like, well, I know there's got to be more. So I happened to find another website, and this was called the Stakeholder Forum. And any of those reds, okay, any of those red or pinks, those are going to stand for areas of the Sustainable Development Goals that are strictly outlined. In other words, the goals are still being worked on. So it's kind of like you've got an empty frame and no picture in it. So education is one of these. That's a huge deal, everybody. Really big, okay? All right. Anything that is blue, and that was quite a bit, if you'll remember, that was the partnerships, the peace, the justice, those sorts of things. Those are post-2015 goals. So what that means is all the framework, all the guidelines, all the agreements that are going into these particular developmental goals with the blue means it's anything after 2015, which means the meeting that's going on right now has a lot to do with this. Okay, now anything that's orange, and you had 2 places that were orange. Excuse me, didn't mean to do that. My nose is a little itchy, so hang on. Oh. Okay, anything that is orange, again, post-2015, but these are the areas that need more consultation. And one of those, of course, we know was gender. So another biggie. So that is the color psychology behind the developmental goals, okay? That's really kind of some not only interesting stuff, but that is going to really help us as we go on in this battle to find out, okay, where should I really be looking and where should I not? In my researched opinion, we should be looking at all of these because every one of these is going to tie back to education. I mean, look at the list again. Consume, produce, sustainable cities, your inequality, your industry, your infrastructure, your innovation, your decent work, your economic growth. Every one of those is going to play into education, and I know that people are working night and day to make education just as competency-based as they possibly can. Now, why I wanted to lay that much before you on the Sustainable Development Goals, and again, I'm not picking on any political party because, as you've heard me speak time and time again, this is not just a Republican problem. It's not just a Democrat problem. This is a United States of America problem. But one of the reasons why I wanted to lay that out for you is because this is what set me off the other day. On the 18th of September, and this is the 21st. Okay, so that was what, 4 days ago. All right. One of my dear friends on Facebook was like, are you watching what's going on with Haley and Trump in front of the UN? And I'm like, what? And she said, here's what's going on. Well, they were giving a speech, and you can find this on Sirica.com, and I'll be sure to link that to you. But this is where President Trump said, yes, we're going to back Agenda 2030 as a nation. And we're going to do it through supporting the United Nations as they reform. Now, that's a big deal because later on, I think it was in a speech that was probably a day or two after that, when you didn't hear him say, yes, we will adhere to the 2030, you did hear him pledge all our support and our finances to UN reform, and it's part of Agenda 2030. Well, now how do those Sustainable Development Goals factor into Agenda 2030? They are absolutely lock, stock, and barrel part of Agenda 2030 on purpose. You see, Agenda 21 we know a lot about. Well, Agenda 2030 is the newer version of Agenda 21. The Millennial Development Goals have been renamed into the Sustainable Development Goals. So this is why this is a big deal. He also went on to say, I believe it was, and I found this on CNN, was that he was pledging jobs, economy, especially in the science and technology fields. He also referred to the Marshall Plan and said that we had 3 pillars, but clearly there are 4, and those are peace, sovereignty, security, and prosperity. And one of the big things that we're seeing is there's a big push in America for more jobs. Well, that's great, but when you look at the way the jobs are coming about, it's not through anything other than education manipulation to skill-based, competency-based, career tech education for STEM jobs and training. Okay, so that's a big problem there as well. But let's stop and go back. Back in July, I believe it was, the president and his leadership were also at the G20, and I did a big article on how dangerous that was for education, and it wasn't just because of the G20, it was the business arm, or the B20, that was saying, not only are we going to make sure that we go back to our respective countries, and in our case it would be America, and make sure that we can do everything for business to align education, we're going to help finance it too. So again, big warning. Let's see here. And then, of course, there were some global projects that we fund that were also mentioned. So here is the taxpayer money going to support global agenda and global overreach without the taxpayers okay. That's a big problem. Haley is just as big of a problem in this particular instance, and I refer to her comments where she was saying that basically that we as a nation are going to pledge everything we can to the UN Secretary General so that the UN can be a better, safer place for everyone. Go back, read the comments to these particular speeches, warriors, because it's going to give you quite a bit of not so much what was said, but what wasn't said and what we're being pledged to do. Anytime we have our leaders who go and say, yeah, I love America, yeah, this, yeah, that, but I'm going to go over here and I'm going to give 22% of the tax, 22% of the entire United Nations budget is going to come from my people, without us saying, yes, that's what we want. Now, please do not misunderstand me. I am not against people helping each other. What I am against is being controlled by people, especially when they don't live in my country. Okay, let me see here. Some of the global education that we're already seeing show up in the classroom, and this is not just through Common Core, this could be through your assessments, through STEM, through the innovation, through ESSA as it's coming about. And Allison Hawker, oh goodness, I'm blanking on her last name, McDowell, there it is. Okay, she put this particular list together, and she said, anytime you see the word innovation in this particular form, it's going to be untested. And how many times have we seen our children be the guinea pigs and our teachers be the guinea pigs for this sort of innovation? Anytime you see personalized learning or student-centered, you're going to know that your child is going to be isolated somewhere on a computer as well as being data mined. Anytime you see that adaptive learning is used in education, know that your student is being controlled, assessed, and measured 24/7. Blended or project-based learning means limited human interaction, and one of the things that our children so desperately need is human interaction, not computer nannies. Formative assessments, those are going to mean that your students, your children, your grandchildren are being spied upon, which violates their privacy and freedom, civil rights. And that's regardless of what skin color. Gained learning is behavior conditioning. You can also find more about that out. I think her blog is Wrench in the Gears as well. Okay, we're seeing the Agenda 2030 not play out in our schools, but we're seeing it play out in our communities. And one of the biggest things that I can tell you, warriors, is that in ESSA, the Every Student Succeeds Act, when you see 21st century community learning centers, when you see after school or community alignments, when you see community-wide assessments, when you see public-private partnerships increased, and all the things that go with that, that is absolutely this Agenda 2030 mindset of we're all in this together, and every child belongs to everyone, not a particular set of parents or a family, and as such we have to all work together to raise this child, to educate this child, to make sure this child has a job. Last I knew, our kids were given to us by our almighty maker, and not everyone needs to be in with you raising that child to the degree that some of this stuff goes. Okay, now, of course, I told you that the Sustainable Development Goals, of course, education is number 4 of those goals. That was the red one. And they say that education is a fundamental right. All right, one of the big things that I found out about the United Nations with education, and it goes into these particular goals for education, is that we have to have constant assessments. And we're seeing this play out in the language for ESSA with the mandates of the 95% participation rate. You won't be able to opt out, or your state gets penalized, won't get as much funding. So, of course, they're holding the assessments over us like a big brick. All right, one of the things about the particular assessments that UNESCO wants us to use, again, to align to this Agenda 2030 and to align all American education, and this is regardless of what age you are, because this is a birth to death, pretty much shackle, if you will, is going to be known as a CIPP, and I'm trying to remember where I wrote that particular little note down. Oh, goodness. Basically, what a CIPP is, it is a competency-based performance assessment. So in other words, instead of us measuring our brain capacity, what I know about spelling or English or math or anything like that. It's going to consistently measure me on how well I perform certain skills. And so that's a big deal. That goes into your social and emotional learning, which we also see ramped way up in the Every Student Succeeds Act as well. Now, one of my other friends, Paul Raymond, has done a really good job. He sent a very long list of some of the particular groups who are backing the early learning push through ESSA, and also who are UNESCO and UN and Agenda 2030 friendly. And you can find those on readynational.org. Of course, I have that link. I'll be sure to put it up. And he also said to look for a resource called the Backpack Full of Cash. So you might want to look for those as well. Okay, we're seeing Agenda 2030 again, like I said, play out in our communities, and I've got lots of research on that. And you can find it through your E-rate legislation. You can also find it through your community plans. You can also find it through if your city government, like in the town I live in, they help run the media, the internet. So I've got an article on that and how it plays into the global data mining and the agenda and all that kind of stuff. Okay, so of the education prongs that are coming into our nation and have been here for a while, because I know it's been here for a while, and I want to thank those who have blazed the trail for this kind of stuff way before I ever got involved. So thank you so much for that. Now, there are 7 goals within the education goal. And if you'll remember, the education goal is that red one, which means it's a frame, but there's, a lot to be filled in. Number 1, we need to have free education with effective outcomes. Now, that's one of those feel-good, fuzzy terms for outcomes. Means we have a prescribed path for your student. Number 2, we want free early education from birth to 1st grade. Every Student Succeeds Act has it called Universal Pre-K, and that was at Patty Murray's pushing that we got that. All right, number 3, affordable, effective vocational career tech education and university options for all our citizens. And if we'll remember, not just traditional K through 12 students and teachers are in career tech education, VOTech, or university. We have all school choices who use these particular avenues of education. Number 4, we want a skilled, educated workforce. And if you know anything about the way that this particular agenda is working, you're not going to be educated like, say, an older person would be, where they've got a good foundation. You're going to get a minimal foundation to do just enough reading, to do just enough math, to be able to be a good conformist. All right. Number 5, we need the same education opportunities for all. We've heard that before from Lamar Alexander. Number 7, we need to have citizens who are literate and number capable. Number 7, and this is the last prong of all the education targets in this particular goal, number 4, and that is we need to have education for sustainable development goals. Now, I want to stop and let you know that's really sad. 7 global goals, and the biggest one is education for sustainable development goals. Now, here's probably why this is such a big deal for us. And this is a quote from Robert Mueller. And if you know anything about the United Nations, you know he was one of the very first leaders, and he was a very twisted individual. And his quote was, "Steer our children toward global citizenship, earth-centered beliefs, socialist values, the collective mindset, which is becoming a requirement for the 21st century workforce." Now, citizens and warriors, how many times have we heard our congressmen and women say almost some of these same words, in using different terms, of course, especially that 21st century workforce? I can think of quite a few who have said that. Currently in our Congress, there is a bill that's on the table. It's H.R. 3358. And on page 2, it's pledging a huge portion of our American taxpayer dollars to go to fund global health. And the reason I bring that up is because how much, and this is a thought question for us, how much of that taxpayer money is going to come back through education, especially in the healthcare fields or tied to the healthcare, that is going to be not U.S. guided, but globally guided? That's a big question for us. And it's also on page 14 of this particular bill, they're going to ramp up the education data mining. So we can also find that. And again, as we know, with the data mining that's going on, it's not stopping at the American borders. It goes on to an international level like you would not believe. Okay. Now, of those 7 particular goals in goal number 4, which is the education goal, you have an A, a B, and a C. And these are not so much targets as they are pillars, okay? So we have the framework, we have the 7 spaces in it, and now we have the 3 pillars, all right? Now, we also need to know that the next big in-depth political review of Sustainable Development Goal number 4, which is education, is targeted for 2019. So in a little over a year, this is when they're going to really look at global education. Now, the first pillar, upgrade and build all learning environments for every citizen. Ladies and gentlemen, how many of your schools have you seen being rebuilt in recent history? How many taxpayer dollars or property tax rates have you seen skyrocket to fund a new building because it needed to be a new updated learning facility? All right, the second pillar, by 2020, increase scholarships, especially for all STEM fields. Now, STEM stands for science, technology, engineering, and math. And the third pillar, increase your teacher pipeline. Now, these are words that I absolutely detest using to refer to humans, but these are the words that are being used to describe us as humans. All right, some other things that play into this particular developmental goal, number 4, the education. The Muscat Agreement of 2014, Our Common Future of 1987, the GAP, which stands for the Global Action Program on ESD, which is the Education for Sustainable Development. You're also going to need to look into the Higher Education Sustainable Initiative, or it's known as HESI, and that's HESI. In 2015, they became partners with the Global Action Program to broaden community alignment. You also want to look into the Organization of the American States. Now, this was founded in 1944. But how we know this plays into all this is because I happened to find, when I was doing some research on how global education is reaching into home education and private education, there are actually homeschool clubs designed specifically for UNESCO-minded people, global people, and this one particular student did a thesis, if you will, and she pulled out the Organization of American States and tied it to the newer smart cities that we're seeing pop up all over the nation. The nearest smart city I live to is Charlotte, and one of the ways that I know it's a smart city is not only have I done the research, but I've watched the news where you saw how I believe it was Google came in and laid new fiber optic cables all through the city, and it was under the guise to get you better internet. But what you don't know is what wasn't said, and that is to make Charlotte a smart city, because throughout all our states, we have these particular cities who are going to be like this, and it's part of that Agenda 2030, the Sustainable Development Goals, and the whole 9 yards. All right. Now, that particular article on home education and the UN, I published back in August of 2016, and it was made by the American Homeschool Model United Nations Club. It was a product of the Classical Homeschool Academy of Princeton's Model UN, or known as Chapman, which is CHAPMUN, and all the home educated and all homeschoolers interested in global affairs nationwide. Now, we can find UN model clubs in the college level as well. All right. Now, I also did an article back in June of this year where I took, if anyone remembers, the SCANS report from the U.S. Department of Labor. That was all those competencies that we were supposed to be able to have to be educated and workforce ready. I took those particular goals and I compared them to the Sustainable Development Goals for a competency-based educated student, and it was absolutely scary because they were almost like mirror images of each other. It was like, okay, we're going to take one document, we're going to lift it, we're going to put it into the other one. So that was from back in June of this year. Okay. Let's see here. In my conversation starter article, which was August of this year, I showed you the 7 steps from the Sustainable Development Goals to create competency-based education, not only for our students, but for our teachers, our communities, and everywhere else. Now, the way I know this is because one of my other dear friends, Karen Bracken, she's an absolutely fabulous UN and education resource, gave me or sent me the link to the 2001 Sustainable Development Toolkit that was created not by the UN, but by a professor at the University of Tennessee. And one of the biggest things that has always stuck out to me about that particular document is education is the change agent to make your community believe that we have to go and adhere to these globalistic minded goals to be a better community, to be a better people, to live a better life. That has played out in literature. I don't know if you have ever seen this. It took me a long time to find this, but this is called the 2020 Forecast. It's called Creating the Future of Learning, and it's by the Knowledge Works, but also look at this, the Institute for the Future. Now, I've done enough research to know, hang on, these are some wicked groups. And in this lovely, lovely folder, if you will, you're going to find, and this is a big document as well, you're going to find lots of colors. Now, I haven't looked to see if these colors correspond with the ones the UN chose for the Sustainable Development Goals. It would not surprise me, though. But I can also point you to this particular resource. But what I wanted to show you down here was under self. I don't know if you can see it. Hang on just a second. Under self, whoops. Okay, there we go. We see things like medicine. Well, we're having a lot of people who are over-medicated. Then we also have organizations. We have systems, our society, and finally our economy and our knowledge. All these are to show us that we are supposed to be, and I kid you not, we're either supposed to be learning agents spread throughout our communities, or we're supposed to be some sort of community change agent, because we all, like I said, we have to be in this together. All right, let's see here. Let me see if I can give you a little bit better explanation. All right, it says here, join us in exploring how future forces are now pushing us to become even more active in creating a future that meets the needs of every learner. Well, kind of heard that with ESSA. And this is another one that Knowledge Works put out as well. Now, this is called Recombinant Education. Now, this is really, really strange, ladies and gentlemen, because usually this particular word is only used in the medical field for DNA, talking about cell organisms that have been created with new organizations. So knowing what we know about that word, apply it to education, and we're going to see it totally reworked, which is a good start of what the United Nations has done as well. And this particular report was the one that really scared me as well, because again, you're going to see we're broken down into 3 different groups. We're learners, we're learning agents, or we are part of the learning ecosystem somehow. So we can't just go be citizens. No, we all have to be somehow in this particular learning net, if you will. Okay, very quickly, I want to show you, and this is something that I created for a meeting that I went and spoke to a couple of years ago. Now, we all know everything's global, right? UNESCO. It's filtered down into our federal legislation. It's in our student longitudinal data system. It's in our workforce quality data initiative. Those 2 are married, if you will, and what they do is they pretty much track what courses your child will take throughout their education. And again, this doesn't matter if they're in traditional school, private school, homeschool, or whatever. It will find them, because the goal of all this global education is not reserved just for public school students. This is meant for every citizen. ESSA is really big on these 21st century community learning centers. That's a global UNESCO idea. So are your promised neighborhoods. That's been codified, by the way, in ESSA. It was a presidential initiative, which has now been codified. Digital Promise, same thing, was a presidential initiative, now is codified. Of course, we know that all our assessments, the SAT, the ACT, the CLAP, you name it, it's been aligned. And we also know that the high stakes assessments are coming to get our kids. Now, how does that look in your state? Well, in my state, our trained workforce is going to go through a system called the NC Works, or Thrive NC. We also have globalness, readiness, standards, and strands, even in our Every Student Succeeds Act state plan. We have also what's known as a common follow-up system. Now, this is a lovely little booger that the minute your student, again, doesn't matter what age, enters a North Carolina public institution, be it a school, virtual school, community college, early college, an apprenticeship, you name it, if it is funded by the state, you are assigned a unique identifier number that tracks you from your career, from your school to your career. And of course, higher education in North Carolina is governed by the Board of Governors. So that's a lot of the North Carolina makeup. You also have the North Carolina General Assembly. You have the North Carolina State Board of Education. You have all kinds of groups that work with these individuals. I think there are close to 1,000 that work with these. So we've gotten from global to federal to state. All right, now here are some other ways that you're going to see global education in America. Of course, we know the Common Core state standards, of course. We know the College of Career Readiness. STEM absolutely is a UN derivative. The term STEM was a marketing tool created by the National Science Foundation at the UN's urging to sell this kind of agenda through STEM jobs, through STEM education. And there is a report that I have shared with you many, many times. It's called the PCAST report of 2010 that was given to President Obama. And in it, it said, we are going to use this time to usher in STEM along with Common Core so that no one will know. We are actually after, a STEM people to become STEM citizens, STEM educated with STEM jobs for a STEM economy to boost the global good. Okay, You also have STEM academies. Those are popping up everywhere. We have a STEM affinity network here in North Carolina. Career tech education, career clusters, career pathways, your apprenticeships, every bit of that, okay? Workforce education, notice this is pre-K to career and includes your post-secondary. Dual enrollment, early college high school, career high schools. Your AP/IB schools, classes, courses, and assessments, your magnet schools, your charter schools, your private schools, your proprietary schools. These are your for-profit schools. Every bit of this has global influence that is fed through that global to federal to state level, okay? Now, I made this for another meeting, and this is a map of everything that's connected to the Every Student Succeeds Act. All right, birth to career workforce, P3 learning, which is not an academic education, because P3 stands for public-private partnerships. And in Every Student Succeeds Act, we see an increase in the amount of businesses in our classrooms. We also see that it usurps our parental involvement. It creates a nanny state. It absolutely does. And this is done for the global greater good, to create global citizens, to foster a national and global economy, all for the common good. Now, again, go back to the meeting that's going on right now where we have our leadership. And what are they pledging America to? Global economies, common good, a stronger UN. All right, community-wide wraparound services, including your employment. If you have a one-stop career center in your state, that is exactly what this is. It is a community-wide wraparound service, because we're all supposed to go one place, and that's the government, to solve all our problems through education and workforce and jobs and healthcare and the whole 9 yards, okay? All right, where else can you find global education in not only the Every Student Succeeds Act, but the Workforce Innovation Act and the Higher Education Act? And that one's actually being rewritten. That is the last nail in the coffin for America. WIOA went in 2014 to lay the foundation for all the workforce-based education. Then Every Student Succeeds Act was passed, and then now the Higher Education Act, when it is going to more than likely be passed, will be that final cement to go from birth to death as far as education and workforce. I'm just going to read off a few things of how you can find this in ESSA, WIOA, and HEA. Personalized learning, universal design for learning, social and emotional learning. You're also going to find it through competency-based education, lifelong learning, STEM. You're also going to, now I want to back up just a second. The lifelong learning actually is a term that was coined by the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, and our U.S. labor uses this particular information as well. All right, excuse me, okay. You're going to find it in career tech education, career clusters, career pathways, apprenticeships, problem-based education, internships, your constant assessment, your open design classrooms. That actually was developed by the UN back in 2009, and they tested out in Brazil. Credentials that are replacing our diplomas. You're also going to find that you have tons of money set aside in ESSA for innovation, opportunity, for accountability, for transparency, for inclusiveness and genders. That all is off of an Agenda 2030 document that President Obama put out as a fact sheet. And these are buzzwords that we now see showing up not only in Every Student Succeeds Act, but are from the Sustainable Development Goals as well, okay? Now, back in, and I can't remember what year it was, but I have this on one of my articles, there was an agreement that was made, and it's called the Adidas Ababa Act, and it was in my Not in My Backyard article. And this was a meeting between all the different countries that were like, how are we going to pay for the Sustainable Development Goals? Well, this particular agreement said, well, here's what we're going to do. We're going to go back to different countries, and we're going to make ways for private citizens to pay for the Sustainable Development Goals. And what has just happened within the past couple of days, but a report has come out that, yes, absolutely, private citizens will be paying for these Sustainable Development Goals and ramping up. Okay? The main three, of course, are going to be your health, your security, and your education. That's how it's going to be passed to you, that we've got to do this because we need better health care. We need to be a more secure nation, and we need to be a better educated nation as well. All right? A lot of this is going to profile every single one of us, not just our students, but our teachers everywhere. You can find that in my Of Late article. You'll need to look for the global partner data. You'll need to look for Global Citizen Signature Project. That was in my particular article called Know Your Worth. And that, ladies and gentlemen, equates you to a return on investment like you were a commodity and not a person, especially for the public-private partnerships. Okay? Let's see here. What else do I want to show you? Oh, if you ever doubted that career tech education or college career readiness or Common Core was just K through 12, there you go. College and career readiness for adult education. That's 2013. That's been absolutely woven into not only your WIOA, but your ESSA, believe it or not, even though that was supposed to only cover K through 12. And it absolutely will be in the HEA as well. Okay, let's see here. Some of your funders. Okay, here it is. That, let me go back just a minute. I'm so sorry. I don't mean to bounce all over the place, but this is quite a bit of stuff to share with you. All right. I have, and this is going to be one of the links that I share with you. I was able to uncover the UNESCO model for all assessments across the globe, which is a big deal. And the targets are learner motivation, leader training, family, social, and economic status, as well as controlling the system, curriculum, and policies. And this is based on that CIPP model that I was telling you about. That stands for Context, Input, Process, and Product, which is a skill-based or service learning assessment. This is a UN UNESCO model for assessments, ladies and gentlemen, and this has been going on for a while. Let's see here. Now, as far as the data mining that goes in with these particular assessments, again, this is another UNESCO document. They're going to either be 2PL or 3PL, and what that means is a two-phase locking data tracking system on your student or on your teacher, or a 3PL, which is a three-phase locking data tracking system, and these are tied to psychometric measures in the assessments. Again, social and emotional learning and manipulation, and this is from UNESCO. I have documents. All right. The tests, according to UNESCO, this is their definition, tests will monitor you constantly at all levels of education, and they're financed through the Global Alliance to Monitor Learning. Again, another group of people to be looking at. Okay, and there's Karen. Okay, I don't know if anyone has any questions. Let's see. Okay, let me scroll back up here. Did I say HR 3358? Yes, I did. I absolutely did. That is a huge boondoggle of a bill that is supposed to be, okay, we're going to fund fiscally the year 2018, 2019, I believe, Danny. Okay. And let's see here. Do we have anyone else who has a question? Do we have anyone who has a comment? Okay. Well, that is everything that I have for you. Like I said, what I'm going to do for the particular links for everything that I have, and I have probably 20 or 30, I'm going to post those on the Common Core Diva page. So if you've listened to this Just go back and look for that list, and I will do my best to post a little snippet of what this particular link is for, so that it can kind of help jog your memory through this particular presentation. Okay? I want to thank you all again. We're not done. There's one thing that I wanted to let you know, and it's absolutely huge. I've given you all this gloom and doom, so let me close with a really, really exciting and good thing that we can do. And that is, across America, we can fight like hell. We can absolutely say, you know what, Mr. and Mrs. Legislator, I'm not doing this. I'm not going to stand for it. And let's find ways to work together. One of the things that we've done, and I am one of the 4 national leaders for this, it's called Child Abuse in the Classroom. And we have a 2-pronged goal. And one is to repeal ESSA, and the other is to restore FERPA. And the reason why we want to repeal and replace, if you will, and this is a true repeal and replace, or repeal and restore, if you will, because we're not going to be politicians. When you repeal ESSA, you strike a blow to the global education. You strike a blow to the educrats who think they know what education is. By restoring FERPA, we strike a blow to all the data mining that's going on, to all the social and emotional manipulation that's going on. The child abuse in the classroom, I'll get it out, ladies and gentlemen, I'm sorry. The Child Abuse in the Classroom website is childabuseintheclassroom.com. Now, there are going to be all kinds of tabs on that particular website, and what you need to be looking for. The Social and Emotional Learning tab. This will give you not only violations that are in ESA, or the Every Student Succeeds Act, that are being committed against not only our students, but our teachers every single day they're in the classroom. It's going to give you other things to look for, like some of the different ways that this manipulation is going on. You're going to see the loopholes in ESSA for not just the social and emotional learning. You're going to see the loopholes of FERPA. FERPA, if you'll remember, was gutted by an executive order. It would be lovely if we could get our president to say, you know what? No more. I'm going to restore FERPA so that we can kill the data mining. Because if we kill the data mining, which is over $800 billion industry, I do believe, it's huge how much money goes into it. It would help strike a blow to this global tide. Because if you'll remember, the entire U.S. cabinet agencies, every one of them, is in on both the Workforce Quality Data Initiative data system as well as the Student Longitudinal Data System. And those go out to not only every cabinet level, but they go to contractors and researchers and anyone who has literally a pass that says, I need this data, they can get into. And this is why data mining is so absolutely egregious. Remember, these violate not only our rights to freedom, but it violates our right to privacy as well. That's not American. That absolutely is not American. But we know that we are still here. We're still a nation. We still have people who want to help us fight. I know I've given you quite a bit of information, but I want you to know that we need you to help us in this child abuse in the classroom so that we can repeal ESSA, we can restore FERPA, we can give our students back their education, we can give families back their privacy, and we can see America stay America and not a member state of a global operation for some greater good that's not going to do a hill of beans for you and I in our families. All right, guys, thank you so much. Take care.